because she thought she had to make a decision between a home and a wedding. I told her, why can't you have both? It's not realistic to have both. Home prices is out of this world. And when I got that ring on her finger, she started planning a wedding in her mind. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Care to Elaborate, coming to you from the Care to Elaborate Studios, Follower Studios. Again, we are back together to ensure that you get this content, but I wanted to make sure that we start by talking to you about what we're going to have a conversation about today. Today, we're going to talk about cultural norms. You may not know what we mean by that, but we're going to get a little bit deeper into that. But before we do, I want to ask my co-host Taylor, how are you doing?
I am doing well. It is, y'all, it's rainy and it's cold.
It is.
I don't know what's going on. Like the combination is too much.
Yeah.
It needs to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, I'm doing well. How are you today, Travarus?
I feel good. I feel blessed.
Amen.
I feel blessed.
Amen. We in our new studio. You know, we up here got this set up. Travarus has done his thing yet again. And we're ready to talk about cultural norms because, you know, we're from two different places.
We are.
We're from two different generations. Y'all know Travarus pushing 40.
That sounds so crazy. Oh my God. That sounds so crazy.
40. Ooh,
that sounds crazy.
When you throw your 40th birthday party, I'll be there.
It's gonna be out of the country.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm gonna be there, but
you can be invited.
Okay. Oh, period.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me know. Child, look, where you trying to go?
I don't know. Somewhere Caribbean. Some
Oh,
island.
you know, do me a mean look.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Some all inclusive. Of course. Of course.
Birthday party. Be like, what a shot o'clock. So if anybody is listening, is gonna be at the birthday party in a couple of years, because he got like 2. You got 2 years?
A year and a half at this point.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Bougie. Look, the bouge. The bouge gonna bouge, you know?
Yeah, at that point, he gotta bouge you.
Got to.
You gonna be pushing 50 next.
That's crazy. That's insane.
Like, literally.
That's insane. But speaking of that, I want to talk to people about why we discovered, why we want to talk about cultural norms, right? So for me, as Taylor mentioned, I am in my late 30s. I got married at 37. I got married at 37.
That was like last year, 1 and 2.
23. We had our first child at 36, right? I had the luxury of being able to figure it out and not have any pressure around starting a family, finding a person. I was able to just put my career first and just go, right?
Because you're a man.
And that's what we chatted about. Whereas specifically, I'm from Northeast. Taylor is a woman from the South.
The deep, dirty South.
Right. Which has different kind of norms around your expectations of becoming an adult. Talk to me about those.
Well, first of all, so many people I went to high school and college with, they're married.
Easily.
And let's note, everyone, I am 23 years old. I'll be 24 coming up. But like, these people are married. I know some people that already have 2, 3 kids.
Ouch.
I can't even imagine having one. The dog is enough. But it's expected of us as women, and also as like Southern women, to get married early. You know, there's a big thing, especially where I went to school. I went to the University of Alabama, where people get what is called their MRS degree. People be going to college to get married.
MRS degree.
You never heard it?
No, but my boy literally told me last week about people getting a boyfriend degree or a husband. The same thing.
Okay.
Same thing. It's like the concept of you finding your partner at your university.
Exactly. And that's like a huge thing at Alabama. Like, people be getting engaged before they even graduate.
MRS degree.
There was nobody that I wanted to marry at the University of Alabama, but shout out to y'all who found y'all a person, because I ain't find nothing but heartbreak. But anyway,
But yeah, those conversations allowed us to discover, like, there's so many differences in our stories that allowed us to be here. Because, for instance, for me, there is no expectation. I came from a 2-parent household, but my mom and dad broke up when I went to college. So I turned right before I went to college. They were staying together for me, which I was like,
yeah, they had to do that.
I get it.
Yeah,
I hear y'all.
just like if it's some parents out there that are staying together for your older children, honestly for your younger children, they can tell.
My sister was still at home,
Yeah, they
right? So
your children can tell when y'all don't like each other, and that builds more trauma than
it
anything.
does.
But
But
that's
also,
another story.
sidebar, cue cards are still popping. Just so you understand that this is official. This is not we're not playing around this
I
season.
got worse. Period.
um, but yeah, so my mom and dad broke up when I was 17, going to college,
Mm,
and but I had the luxury of having both of them in my life the entire time. So in terms of looking at marriage as a pillar, it was important, but not like a priority. So I've
interesting.
always known that once I have kids, and let me back up. I was able to be choosy and selective with the person I want to spend the rest of my life with because I had the luxury of time. I don't have a biological clock.
Men do not have biological clocks. Men be 80 and still having kids.
Ain't that crazy?
Ugh,
But
nasty.
with that said, I also I was like I said, I was able to be choosy with my partner because I don't have a biological clock.
Mm,
Um, and I knew I was going to end up with somebody that I felt was going to be right for me, but I was able to be patient. I found my wife across the country.
mm.
You know what I mean? When I wasn't specifically looking for my life partner, I found her, and that's
That's the best time to
right.
find them. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so whereas for you, speaking of the MRS degrees, when did you understand the expectations of what it meant to be to grow up where you were and the norms that were bestowed upon you without even you signing up for those?
Gosh, when did I know? Honestly, I can't even tell you. If
You know?
I'm like really being honest, okay. I think we have to go back like historically. So historically, in general, especially in the South, I feel like women get married at a younger age.
Yeah.
So for example, my grandma got married at what? Like 19,
Yo.
like 18, like had her first child at 19. Same thing with my other grandma. She got married really young. Now I will say my parents did get married later. My parents got married when they were like 30,
Okay, I was gonna say
34,
what's later.
30, 34. Like
Okay,
they waited. They had their time.
hold on.
Mhm.
That's why you so mature.
Why? Because my parents are older?
Your parents had you when they were older.
I don't
I
I mean,
think
maybe that's part of it.
imagine what you observed. You probably saw more. I'm projecting. You
Mhm.
probably saw more healthy things than if your parents had you at 19.
No.
No, okay, all right, but
Okay, maybe then if they had me at 19, but like
I'm not saying like healed and happy and
okay,
healthy,
but
but
like
like
okay, not
your
as
your scenario was probably could have been better
right, right.
than
Yeah.
I think having older parents. My mom had
Yes.
me at 19,
Okay, so
and my
you
dad was
see
26.
okay, so you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I feel like the generation before us, or
Mhm.
a couple generations before us, they had that like people are having children young, and I think maybe it has evolved, but I think specifically where I am from, I still see that consistently, and because that's something I saw, I'm like, is it expected that I have children when I am,
Ah, right.
in my mid-20s, which I'm nearing mid-20s, and I can't even imagine having no baby today,
Yeah.
tomorrow, or in the next 3, 4, 5
I
years.
mean, I get it. Like I said, I had my daughter at 36.
Ooh, I don't know, I ain't trying to wait that
I
long, but
mean, understood. But it becomes now the flip side. We're gonna jump around a little bit. The flip side of that is, as a man, I gotta get my money right.
true,
You necessarily don't. The cultural norms in the black community is that if you are coming together in a healthy environment,
healthy. Now, you
healthy,
know how he said healthy.
healthy,
Mm,
the man has to come correct. That doesn't mean that the woman doesn't need to have any, because in some situations, a lot of situations in our community, the women are the breadwinner, right?
true.
But traditional cultural norms state that the man has to have his shit in order,
This is correct.
right? So for me, I've talked about it many times. I felt like my situation was correct when I met my wife,
Mm,
and it allowed me to think about more seriously, can I afford an engagement ring? Can
mm.
I afford a place to get engaged? Can I afford a home? Can I afford all these things in order to be able to provide a life that she once, and that I want as well.
See, and you're saying this, and it makes me think about all the people who I currently know who are getting married or who have gotten married.
Mhm.
And I be thinking this is like the number one thing that I think, where are y'all getting this money from? I'm like, okay.
The way
And
you set that up was profound.
'cause I'm like, okay, if I'm 23 and I know I'm making good money,
Yeah,
somewhere near around
yeah,
close to 6 figures, I'm like, but I can't even think about, I don't have no money. Well, I wouldn't be buying the ring. Well, I guess I would be buying a ring. But
mhm.
anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like I cannot fathom having the money to do so. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
No, you're
But
not.
my thing is for the people back home who I know are not making as much just due to the cost of living where I'm from. I'm from Alabama. I'm like, how y'all affording these? I mean, maybe it's, maybe they nepo babies. I don't know.
I was gonna say that I
Um,
have a real answer.
okay.
I have a real answer, but the side answer is parents.
Yeah.
Parents, generational wealth,
Generational wealth.
generational comfort,
Yeah.
right? Generational. My parents had a house,
Right.
right? That they mortgage was $16 in 1980. They
True.
paid it off. They got discretionary income, so they can help me get my joint. Or they knew that since I was 16, and they're going to start putting money away once they. So I wasn't aware that people have parents that help because my parents did not help. They didn't have the
Mm,
funds to help. I saw a man that I played basketball with. I happened to eavesdrop on him saying that he's about to propose that day.
mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, that's what's up." And we talked, and I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And I see him at the gym like last week. I like, how'd it go? He was like, "Man, it went great." Um,
That she was eavesdropping in you.
I know, and I
Nosy.
was like, he said it was great. He was asking me more about like where I got married at, all that stuff. And I was like, look, I know destination wedding is, you get more bang for your buck. It's not necessarily cheaper, but I started explaining. He was like, oh, I don't have to worry about that. I was like, why? He was like, my fiance's dad's going to take care of the wedding. I said, take
Amen.
care of in terms of, you mean like finding a venue for you? He's like, no, no, no. He's going to pay for it. Bet, 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 bet,
But
bet.
that's a cultural norm
Can't relate, but it's a cultural
mhm,
norm. My parents could never. I paid for my dad to get to,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so
I
nah.
wonder is my dad father, if you watching this, you gonna pay for my wedding?
Mm,
Honestly, I'm not even having a wedding, but that's a whole nother story.
Tiff didn't want a wedding either.
Yeah, I'm about to elope. I'm not paying for other people to come watch me profess my love to a man.
It's lit.
That's embarrassing.
It's lit.
I have a reception. I'm not having a wedding.
My wife, when I met her, she said she wanted to get married at the courthouse. This is a good conversation. She mentioned, and we were friends first. She said she mentioned she wanted to get married at the courthouse because she thought she had to make a decision between a home and a wedding.
That you gave her both. Look at that.
I told her, why can't you have both? And she was like, eh, because the reality is it's not realistic to have both.
Mhm.
Especially we were in California in the Bay Area, home prices is out of this world.
Outrageous.
And to be honest, if you're not solid on your financials, then a wedding doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't make sense, right? So I was like, I've always envisioned myself having a wedding, and I'm like, you will regret not having one. So I said, when we'll see. And when I got that ring on her finger, she started planning a wedding in her mind,
Mm,
right? But it took the ring for her to be able to conceptualize
right.
it. But all that to say, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about is where you're from, who are your people,
Right.
um, and what influences rub off on you. Because for you to grow up in Alabama
Mhm.
and you are someone who is like, yeah, 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 I see what they doing. Well, I'm not
I
doing
don't
that.
want
Nah,
that.
I ain't doing that. I ain't
Yeah.
doing that.
And I think, I feel like the cultural norms are changing,
Yes.
but they're still so heavily embedded in the way that we think about certain things.
Yeah.
So, for example, while I know, like, I don't want to get married at 25,
Right.
I definitely didn't want to get married at 22. I still feel sometimes like, I need to be searching for a person
Ah,
because my time is ticking.
got it.
And I
Mhm.
think that's due to the cultural norm that's embedded in my brain, even though I'm trying to break that. that stereotype.
Ooh, pause there because I remembered what we said earlier. Where are people finding the money?
Mhm.
Right? I found the money in tech.
Yeah.
I found the money in tech.
Yeah, you date people in tech.
But outside of parents, there are people who know early and begin to save.
Where are these people?
I met one dude, my homie, I won't say his name. Once he began to date his girl in college, he knew he was gonna marry her. He started to put money away for a ring.
This a I was gonna say something. Anyway.
He's a member of Cap Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So I just wanted to continue to
Oh,
reiterate, noobs are good men. But yeah, he did that, and we were so broke that I couldn't even fathom.
the idea of
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And even you saying, where you get the money from. At 23, I was below broke. I couldn't spell broke. I probably was BRO. I was just
Bet you couldn't
bro.
even bet you couldn't even pay for the rest of
I
the letter.
couldn't even spell KE. So yeah, so I get the thoughts of how are people affording to have the things, and you like, I'm trying to figure out where I'm getting groceries from.
I'm trying to figure out the next step of what I need to do to level. I'm trying to figure out again getting more money. I can't even if and the thing about getting more money is I'm like, okay, if I'm getting more money and I'm
Mhm.
getting married, then that money even have to go to the wedding. I just don't even
Yeah, but also the expectation that we can get our weddings after this is that you don't have to get married on anybody else's timeline. If you get engaged today,
true.
you don't have to get married next year. You can
This is valid.
decide on whatever you want to
But
do.
see, cultural norms make you think that you get engaged, you need to be married within the next at least for like me as a woman.
Yeah,
I've heard that.
yeah.
Like they're like, if you're engaged and you're not married within the next 2 years, what was the point? What are you doing?
We waited 2.5, but it wasn't intentional. Our day is 11/11, so we wanted to wait for that day on the calendar. And
Mm,
it just so happened that 2 years after that was 11/11 on a Saturday, so it was perfect. So we
okay.
waited for
Just
that
wait.
day.
Okay, well that makes
But we
sense.
also didn't care whoever thought anything different.
This is true.
You know,
So I mean sometimes you gotta ignore the cultural norms and the naysayers and what other people have to say.
I often think that probably you and I ignore a lot of our
Yeah, I don't yeah,
cultural norms. Give me
yeah.
give me some more.
Okay. So I think another thing is you're saying that you have never felt like guilt or pressure for
Mhm.
not following up on an expected timeline.
No.
You could just live your life
Yeah.
freely.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like if I waited till 36 to do anything, buy a house, have a kid,
Mhm.
get married, whatever, there is people are gonna look at me like I'm crazy. And I
Okay.
feel like especially black women get a bad rap for like, putting their career above
Yeah.
other things.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Whereas men, you can put your career above whatever, and everybody is
And
gonna
it's
praise you
championed.
for doing that.
Yes.
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 Let's go there then.
Okay, so I 100% agree, but I'll challenge you.
Mm,
If you decided to wait until 36, mid 30s for you to be able to have a child or buy a home, I don't think the people that matter to you would mind that you did that. The people who don't matter may have something to say, but they have something to say about everything,
true.
right? So,
I mean, the people who do, when you go to Thanksgiving and people be like,
okay, all right,
"I,"
okay, okay. Let's go there. Let's go to
yeah,
Auntie.
uh-huh.
Talk to me about the societal pressure out. This is good. Talk to me about the people in our lives who
Mhm.
might not be as cultured, who might not have the latitude to think about how things could be different, maybe a little bit more small minded, more small townish. How they may view your decisions to move to a DC, to be more of an independent woman, to how do they view that your lifestyle in that regard?
So I will say that most people in my life do champion me for doing
Okay,
such
okay,
things. I will say
that's
that.
what's up.
But there are always a couple of them people that are stuck in their old ways that are like, oh my gosh, like how could you even do something like that?
Yeah.
And what people normally say to me is it's more of a question of like how can you do that? Are you not afraid something is gonna happen to you? Like
Mm,
you're so far away
their
from right,
insecurities.
you're so far away from home, you're alone, and I'm like, I moved here to get away from home. I'm like,
Right,
I moved here to be further away. I moved here to be on my own so that I could learn who I am as a human being
right.
outside of the environment in which I grew up in.
Mhm.
And I think that cultural norms have so many people stuck in their same environments because they are fearful of change due to what other people will say or like the uncertainty that comes with it.
Right.
But that type of stuff don't bother me. And so I think for those people who are like constantly asking me like, why did you move away? Or like, we're scared of you being alone, like saying all these things. I think again, those are the, like as you mentioned, the
Yeah,
projections of themselves onto me.
that's their stuff.
Yeah, that's their
Yeah,
stuff, their stigma, their all that stuff that they're putting
yeah,
onto me, and I don't feel that way, and I feel like a lot of Gen Z also does not feel
I
that way. A
agree.
lot of us want to move away and get that experience on
Yeah.
our own.
And going back to the question that you asked, why do I feel inclined or why do I feel comfortable going against the norms that may be put on me?
Right.
It's my life. Now, if I came from an environment where they gave me the bread, they gave me the money to make X, Y, and Z happen, if they set money aside for me to go to college,
Mm,
and they set money aside for me to buy a home, and I don't do those things, now I'm out of pocket
okay, valid.
because things have been provided for me.
Right.
But when I am the one making the things happen, no one could make me feel any kind of way about the decisions that I've made because if you waited a little longer, it all cashed out. It all
Mm,
made sense, right? Now, you similar to me in your formative years decided to leave not only your home but your state
mhm,
to go to a place to help to enrich your mindset. Period.
right.
Some people may say things like, "You can do this at home,"
And I have heard that.
right? And I could,
But I don't
but I'm
want
not.
to.
But I'm
I
not.
don't want to.
Because
Simple.
you're missing out on so many experiences that I know this environment. I know these corners. I know these blocks.
Right. And there is growth in being uncomfortable.
Absolutely, we covered this in another episode. But yeah, if it took me to go to California to find the love of my life, to find a career that I enjoy, and to be able to make enough money to come back to where I'm from to playing roots, I couldn't do that here,
Mm.
right? I couldn't do that here. So yeah, if you're not providing, then you can't tell me what to
Yeah,
do.
that's a good point. And I think more people need to think like that because I think also it has to deal with people outside of our family and
Oh yeah, yeah,
friends.
yeah, yeah.
Especially again from the perspective of Gen Z, is we are constantly on social media.
Social media.
And on social media, once I get on social media, I'm like, damn, she married, she married, she married, she married. She about to get married.
Hmm.
And I think that's like something that we're consistently seeing. Or like even like she got like she did this, she did that, they
Yeah,
did this.
yeah.
And it's this idea of like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Even though it may be nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah,
They got debt too. Don't forget that.
that's valid.
Don't
People
forget that.
only show the good things on social media, not the bad.
Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, social media is something that you all have to deal with a lot more. Whereas I can't.
Because wait, when you were growing up,
Yeah,
when you were like in your formative years of your 20s, what
20s.
was
It was around.
okay? Okay.
20s. It was around.
Let
So
me not date you.
no,
Sorry.
no, no. So Facebook, thefacebook.com came out my freshman year in college.
All right, you did tell me about
Yeah,
this.
and
Okay.
then Instagram popped up around like 2011, and I had just graduated college. But you're still outside, right?
Right.
Then everything began to evolve from there.
Mm,
Then Snapchat was around when I was in my early mid 20s, stuff like that. So we
okay.
no, we had it, and we misused it a lot,
Mm,
or maybe we used it for what it was for. Nowadays, it has so many different uses,
right.
and you can have the residual impact of feeling like you're missing out or that you're not in line with where you're supposed to go because it's a highlight reel now.
It is a highlight. That's a great way of
It
explaining it.
wasn't so much a highlight reel as before. We were just sharing our
It was
experience.
authentic back
Yeah, it
then.
was just we're just sharing our experience.
Mm,
So, but yeah, so with the prevalence of social media and people intentionally trying to stun each other,
yeah.
it does make you feel like you may be out of pocket. I might not be where I need to be from somebody. So, damn, I told you the story before, but I want to make sure I reiterate it again. A homie was working at the factory making like $20 an hour. I graduated, there were no jobs. So
Mm,
with him being able to just have a dope car with some rims or whatever, like just having the
mm,
ability to have discretionary income, whereas I didn't have I was supposed to go to the workforce, but there were no jobs.
right.
So there was a time where you feel a little like I'm missing out because for the first 3 or 4 years post college, I wasn't making any money and they were making money. And then the
Mm,
scales even out at a certain point because I began to get in my field and be able to make money. And then their earning potential is stagnated, whereas mine continues to
Oh,
grow.
I see.
So there was a time where you didn't know. You're like, damn, was it worth it? Did
Mm,
it pay off? Should I not have did what I needed to do? But that patience allowed me to see it through. But if not, I would have felt like, damn, I should have just stayed home for real because they got the cars, they got the house,
yeah,
they traveling, and I'm not.
you're there.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
And so, uh, to your point, I think you cannot compare where you are
Oh
to where
nah,
someone
you sure
else
can't.
is. And that's one thing about just cultural norms in general is that I feel like they were created to make people want to stay on a certain path,
Yep.
a path that is deemed acceptable by
Yeah.
the larger society.
Mhm.
But one thing about Gen Z and about me in general is I don't really society can kick rocks
Right.
at the end of the day
Right.
because I mean to walk the same path that people have been walking for centuries is not always
Doesn't
going
benefit
to
you.
right, it is not always going to align to what people need to do today. So my whole thing is while other people may be doing X, Y, and Z, I feel like it's important to know, like, your core
Oh
values
yeah.
and what you need and what you want out of life, and align what you wanna do to that versus, the cultural norms of the masses.
Yeah. So that gives me to bring me to another point. Um, we talk about the negative aspects right now,
Yeah,
right?
we can talk
But
about
there
some
are some positive aspects of the cultural norms.
okay, tell me
So
more.
for us, we're college graduates.
Yes.
That ideology or expectation was laid before us before us. Our parents knew you're going to college, you're going to graduate,
Mhm.
right? My mom had big aspirations of going to college. My dad wasn't really with the college thing. Very wise guy. My mom had the real intelligence, but because she had me at 19, that kind of squashed it. So
Mhm.
from a very young age, she's like, "You're going to college," and I knew that.
Mm.
My college, what is it? Personal essay was about this. My mom being like, "You're going to college," before I even knew what college was. Those plans were laid out for me before I even knew what that was.
Okay.
Same for you, I'm sure. Your parents, and also very core to know, I'm a first generation college graduate, right? So the expectation is that I would help to push the family forward,
Mm.
right? But for you, you're not first generation college graduate.
Right.
How did those expectations continue to either motivate you or make you feel like you didn't? What? How did it make you feel overall?
So, my whole thing is while I'm not a first generation college graduate, I feel like my mom always, like, pushed me to go to college, but she never really, like, laid the foundation
Oh yeah,
or,
for
like,
sure.
made it clear what steps I needed to take.
They don't.
So my whole thing about the motivation, it was just like, "You need to go because that's what you should do."
Yep.
And I think that's maybe what something we have in common. It was like, "You need to go
Yep.
because that's what you should do because that's the right thing."
Yep.
And it wasn't like, "You should go because I have gone." It was just, "You need to go because this is what you need to do to get a good job." And I think that has been a cultural norm for a long time.
Yeah.
It may be deemed as a positive, but then people will say like, "Oh, look at some of the biggest billionaires that didn't go to college. What does
Yeah.
that look like?" But for me, it was just more so you need to go because this is the path that you should follow. This is the right thing to do.
Agreed. But would you say that that was a good decision?
I would say yes.
Feel
However,
a butt coming. Go ahead.
no, I think it was a good decision for me, but I don't think it's the right decision for everyone.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I know I'm not putting this on you. When you have kids,
Mm.
the aspect of college may be totally different. Even when my daughter grows up,
Yeah, it's changing
and
as we
and
speak.
and it should, right?
Mm,
And it should, and I think that that's the thing that we have to be mindful of is that the norms that we subscribe to even now, because we have cultural norms,
true.
right? We talked about our history and how we got to this place, but we have cultural norms as well. And as we continue to go forward, we gotta be mindful to not put our cultural norms to this super stamp on the next generation,
This
right?
is true.
Especially for you as a mentor to other young folks, being mindful of what you think is normal and to what they think is normal is gonna be really key.
Let's talk about this in a different regard because I think we're talking about this in a very, like, I don't want to say generic sense, but in a more general sense. I think we can expand this a little bit
Okay, talk to me.
because what is currently happening in our current times is like the cultural, like what is acceptable is changing.
Yes.
It is I feel like we're going back to
Oh
1960s
my god, I
times
know.
where things that were deemed normal in the 60s and then were deemed, like, literally unethical are
Mhm.
now becoming normalized again,
Yeah,
and I have a fear, that some of these things that are being normalized today are going to become the new cultural norms. Not for me, because I will never subscribe to no bullshit like that,
right.
but for other people who may not look like us.
I get it.
Yeah.
I understand, and that's a tough pill to swallow because now for me as a parent, I have to reorient my daughter to
Mhm.
be accustomed to things that were weeded out before me.
Right, because you like, we had to experience it in some
In some
just yeah,
spaces,
in some sense, maybe, a little
but our
not
parents, who are probably from the same generation,
yeah,
ha had to deal with some things that we didn't have to,
exactly.
and now that skipped us, and now I have to make sure that I educate my daughter in the space where she's aware of how people may view her. Well, I mean, we all face racism, whether it's overt,
Yeah, or
covert,
cor yeah,
um, but she has to be more mindful of, like, legislation that is in place that may tell people that you are inferior,
right,
right? And I
'cause
didn't
they
have to
bringing
deal
that
with that.
back.
I didn't have to deal with that,
Mm.
you know?
Exactly, and I think not only, again, like, legislation, but just some of the things that we are experiencing in the world in general. In regard to legislation is a big part of it, but because of this legislation,
Mhm.
the things that your daughter may experience on the ground to again, whereas, like,
Yeah.
these things were more silenced
Mhm.
when we were growing up. I mean, I still heard some crazy stuff, y'all, ain't gonna lie,
Yeah, yeah. Me
but
from You're from Alabama.
right, I'm from Alabama, but that's in Alabama, and I hate to say it, but it's low key a norm in Alabama that people know that in Alabama people are gonna be racist.
Yeah.
Whereas now this is becoming a widespread thing where in blue states or states where you normally would think, "Oh, this is a safe space,"
Oh, yeah.
it's not safe anymore, and
I've
it's
e
becoming normalized.
I've experienced more racism in California than I did anywhere else.
Really?
Yeah, because there's the connotation that it's a safe space and that people are understanding, but
Mm,
they when I moved to California, I realized that there are people who advocate for issues they've never experienced, meaning
mm,
they do believe that Black Lives Matter, but they haven't met Black people. They can understand the concept that they want everyone to have the ability to have the space and the opportunity to, you know, you know, to excel in life.
right.
But if a 6'4" black dude with dreads comes to the elevator with them, they still clutching
They like,
pearls,
"Ah!"
right? So
Yeah.
I would go into Trader Joe's. I never forget this. I never forget this. I would go to Trader Joe's after work, so I'm dressed professionally.
Mhm.
I would get stares, look like very like confused looks and like looks of like, what are you doing here? But a white woman with dreads, with flip flops,
It's
and like a moo
acceptable.
moo.
It's acceptable.
What's up, Shirley?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is the kind of world I'm living in.
Right.
This is all right. This is some backwards, flipped, warped
Mm,
scenario. But but yeah. So in terms of racism that I experienced more of that in California. That's supposed to
thank
be
you.
a historic blue state. All those things. And I think that that disrupted what began to think about as normal there. A
Mm,
cultural norm is in a place like California is supposed to be inclusivity for all, right?
right.
But no, not at all.
This is this is quite unsettling
Yeah,
because it makes me wonder, what norms other people are being taught behind closed doors.
right.
Because to your point of saying you went in Trader Joe's and people were like whispering,
Mhm,
and the norm that we see is that people in California should be accepting of other people.
right.
But behind closed doors, that may not be the case. And
Mhm.
so it makes me consistently question, what are other people talking about, whispering about that we just don't have an inkling of.
Oh, this is a good point
And
because
even in the workplace too.
oh, for sure in the workplace.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about things like financial literacy,
Mm, that's a good one. That's a
right?
big one.
The things that people are talking about in their homes about things that they're normal that are normalized to them.
Mhm.
Normalized like buying stocks, you know
Yes.
what I mean, saving money a certain
Yes,
way.
having a Roth 401k,
Right.
knowing the terms. I mean,
All of
yeah.
those things. I think those things may also be taught in a way that is culturally normal,
Mm,
while, there's some people I didn't get that when I was a kid
right.
at all.
Mm,
So, the things that happen behind closed doors might not always be nefarious. They also could be, like, enriching for their
for that
financial future.
for that group.
Yeah.
Huh, and I just that brings us to issues that are systemic,
Yes.
issues of, people just having things and being taught. I just think it really just goes to things being systemic
Mm.
because we're now in a current state where people don't believe in equity. And the whole
Yes.
thing about equity, if people are taught something and it's culturally, relevant to them, and it's
Yeah.
been culturally relevant to them for a long time, but now we are in this space where we are new and
Mhm.
these are becoming new norms to us.
Right.
How in the world can I make it to the same place as someone who's been taught this for 400 years prior? Now, obviously, I can make it to that same space, but it's going to take time, especially for us to make it to that space in the masses.
100%. That's a really good point. And that is, and it also goes to what they're taught about us, not only like or taught about our place in society.
Now there, I would love to be a fly on the wall.
I probably don't even want to.
I want to. I
I'd
want to
probably
hear
be
it so bad.
you. I don't know how you felt, but after I watched Get Out, I was like, I'm up. It's up.
No,
I'm
like
tight.
no, literally when I watched Get Out, it just made me it I mean, I think I already had that thought and it just
Yeah.
confirmed it.
For me, I was there. I felt like where I lived at the time was Get Out.
Yeah, I was in Birmingham, so
I
I
was in
definitely
Santa Cruz, California, and it felt
mm,
yeah, it felt strange. But all that to say, sometimes when you know too much, it may do something in me. The
mhm,
ignorance is cool. I'm cool with some of the ignorance. The ignorance of how folks
mm.
feel about black people in particular. I have an assumption, and that assumption is pretty bad. So I'm happy with where my
It's so
level. Yeah,
terrible.
it's like if it exceeds my terrible, then I'm like I have no hope for society.
You're not gonna have any hope for society then.
I know, but
You're
you spoke about being delusional,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
sometimes you gotta be delusional in order
delusional.
to succeed.
At this point in time, I feel like people are again, as going back to my original point, it is becoming more culturally normal for people to just put these things out into the world again. And so I feel like it's going to be harder for us to be comfortably
Yes,
delusional. It's going to become to the point where like you being a little delulu is just you being ignorant to what is going on currently.
but I think also culturally what's happening is the people who are on the fringes, they're the loudest.
Say more.
So the people who are in the minority of thinking are the loudest.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's a lot of people who feel that way, but it's not.
This is a good point.
You know, and I think that the same way on I don't want to get political, but like there's a left and then there's a right,
Yeah.
right? Left being more on the Democrat side,
Yeah.
right being
Liberal,
more on the
conservative.
conservative side. So the same thing that happened when Biden was in office, there were some things that were going pretty far in terms of
Yeah.
what under the name of inclusion.
Right to the left.
And whereas we generally understand and we affirm and we love inclusion,
Mhm.
certain things were ridiculous. We didn't speak about it out loud, like
Yeah.
we didn't yell, "Hey, that doesn't count." We just like, all right, we'll just ride with it.
Right.
And the same thing happens on the conservative side. There are
Mm,
people that are going far. There are probably most people who do not believe in those notions.
right.
But what's the need to go and dispute it? It's just like I'm wasting my time because these people feel how they feel.
Yeah, and they're again to your point, they're the loudest in the room. So they're the ones that are going to be the most hurt.
Just like Yelp reviews.
That's true. People only leave Yelp reviews when it's either really bad or really good.
That's it.
There's really no in between.
And everybody else reads them.
Exactly. And those things determine the actions of everybody else.
Yes, and it's just like
Y'all guess you know what? Y'all go listen to our episode on self-awareness.
yes,
Because
yes.
y'all need to stop letting other people determine how you think.
Groupthink, man.
Yeah, group thing. Let's
Just
cancel
hold it
that in
down.
2025. If you know something is wrong, you should stand 10 toes behind the fact that you know it's wrong.
You correct it.
Yes. Stop letting these people make y'all look stupid. Anyway,
Mm.
that's a whole nother story. But okay, Travaris, do
Yep.
you think that we have elaborated on cultural norms enough?
I do, and I think that the nuance between Gen Z and millennials allows us to think about it in a way that is palatable, right? Between you being from the South, me being from up north, me being in my late 30s, you being in your early 20s. Um, the expectations of marriage and family planning, as well as uh, the expectations of Gen Z in the workplace, millennials in the workplace. Yeah, I think we did a great job of trying to break down the cultural norms.
I think we did too. And one thing I want to leave you all with is you are always going to come into contact with people whose cultural norms are different than you, whether that's in the workplace, whether that's in life, whether that's in, any other place. And it is up to you to listen
Yeah.
to people. I never, say don't listen to people whose perspectives are different than you, because one thing about diversity and inclusion is that you need to listen to others
Yes.
who may not agree with your points, because I mean that's about broadening your own perspective.
100%.
However, there is a line. I feel like there are certain things that you have to begin to question if these things are morally and ethically correct as norms. And if you feel as if they are not, then it is up to you, not necessarily to educate other people,
Right.
but maybe to challenge them, to share your own perspective, to see if you all can come to potentially a common ground. 'Cause it's hard
I
nowadays.
I 100% agree. Just second guess, have a healthy second guessing for what you've been taught, and if it aligns to who you are today. If it does, that's what's up. If not, seek new information.
Right.
And I think we do it all the time, right? We've may seen things that our parents have done that don't make great sense, and you're like, I'm not doing that.
Exactly. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, with that comes growth.
Yes. Yes.
So I encourage everyone listening today, like, be focused on your growth. If you want to stray away from the norms that have been, imposed upon you,
Hmm.
then that is okay.
It's fine.
It's perfectly fine. Make your own cultural norms,
That's
doggone.
what this should be.
Yeah, like
Just go ahead and do you.
do you. Be who you are.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Now he whispering into the microphone.
With that said, we'll see y'all next time. Thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate you.